Hello, everyone. Welcome to this particular session titled How to Overcome Imposter Syndrome and Conquer Your Self Doubt. Friends, before you watch this, I would also like to tell you that I had recently done this session for a group of more than 70 plus women leaders, and they come in from a top IT firm. I am sharing the same session, but a slice from it, which I've created for the general you who would be visiting my YouTube channel or our existing subscribers, because I thought this topic of imposter syndrome is basically something that most of us as emerging women leaders, that's the area I service, while they struggle to navigate power dynamics and office politics. This area plays a significant role. And therefore, I thought maybe I'll share with you a little bit of what I did in that session because having run that masterclass, it was a very, very interesting experience as to the amount of people uh, in there and their questions. And the most surprising element there was most of the emerging women leaders were not even aware that this kind of a title like imposter syndrome even exist. So I thought for all of you who are my existing subscribers and the one who are visiting this channel, one such session would really help create that awareness and may even perhaps help you because the meditation attached to this particular session, I've already uploaded it. It's available on the channel right now. This one will go next, and you could watch them together to get the most out of it. That's the intention. So, what I would be covering today is we spend some time understanding this concept. What really are the triggers? What assessment skills can help you? My story of when I was suffering from imposter syndrome and the meditation part, and then few very interesting facts that we need to remember this about imposter syndrome so that we navigate and take care of ourselves in a much, much better way. Let's get started. Imposter syndrome, this concept was given to us by Joe and Pauline in the year 1993. It was based on their idea where, in a nutshell, it was about an approach where we look at our success just as an outcome of fluke. So let's say you have done a phenomenal good work and you're rewarded. But then you ascribe that success to fluke or some kind of, you believe that it's like just that it's out of some random fluke thing, you got that success, and it has nothing to do with your work, your competence, because somewhere in your mind, you have this inner script or the narrative that's saying that you're not good enough, you can't do this can't be you. And it's only the external factors which you are ascribing your success to. So, in a nutshell, that was what imposter syndrome is all about. And let's see how this really plays a pivotal role specifically for emerging women leaders. Some of the triggers of imposter syndrome, as I just gave an example, are whether we are rewarded, we pass a difficult exam, we are promoted, or we encounter failure after a string of success. So, what I really meant to share with you here is it's both out of a positive or a negative event when an outcome we do not ascribe to our own efforts or lack of right approach, rather to luck, to fortune, to fluke, to all other things except our own selves. And it typically happens when we have more than the negative part, when we find success. So let's also understand that this syndrome is impacting both the genders equally. And some evidence suggests that it reduces with age, perhaps the reason why now we are more experienced as we age. And that's could be the reason why the self-doubt kind of loses its intensity. One interesting fact is it's not a psychiatric disorder. So if you feel you're going through an imposter syndrome where you think you're not good enough, you are a fraud, people will find out this was not you. How could you get this? How were you able to deserve this? Remember, you're going through imposter syndrome, which is not a psychiatric disorder, but in response to insecurity, self-doubt, and you're just attempting to live up to an idealized self-image. It stems from perfectionism, and it happens to all of us, which varies with intensity and degree, and it is deeply connected to the sense of self. Make a note of this. If you really want to know whether or not, to what extent are you suffering from imposter syndrome, where you feel deep hearts of hearts that you are a fraud, you do not deserve this happiness, this success is out of fluke, then there are some assessment scales that can help you. So the one is Clan's imposter phenomenon scale. You can search for this. I shall share the link also in the description box of this video. And there is Harvey imposter scale. You could use this. They have scores and explanation, which can help you figure out where do you stand in terms of your assessment of imposter syndrome. One common thing that this syndrome holds is it's a problem of the perfectionist. And how it really translates into, I would like to share that with a small um, a story from my own life. As I mentioned, imposter syndrome is deeply connected to our sense of self. And how it really translates is, let me share a part of my story. I'm sure after listening to it, you will also may recall some incidents very similar to that in your own life. So the story goes like this. When I started my corporate career, I was a recruiter, and therefore, uh, the very first things I did was create a LinkedIn account, and then I would have a lot of vendors and people aspiring to get into the firm I was a recruiter for. So they would get connected to me on via LinkedIn, and that's how my professional network grew to a very huge number. But many years later, when I decided to quit corporate and I became a coach, I became a founder of Guide and Advise, helping emerging women leaders navigate power dynamics, become self aware and more resilient emotionally and mentally. When I started my work, my usage of LinkedIn actually kind of decreased because it was now more confined to being professionally connected, because I'm not a no longer a business leader and HR leader, which I was in my past corporate world. So 3 years as a coach, I found that I have no use of LinkedIn. And then one day I decided that even though I am running several marketing campaigns for my coaching services, I found no response from LinkedIn. So one day I decided that I should just delete the account because I've already deleted my other social media accounts, which included Facebook and Pinterest, only Instagram, including Instagram as well, which is now reduced to my personal use. But the Twitter is also my personal use, not too much into the social media marketing campaign. So more or less, I've kind of drastically brought down the social media usage. So when I was evaluating, when it came to LinkedIn, I thought, okay, let me delete this as well. But then I happened to go through the LinkedIn newsletter. which I usually have subscribed to. And I was wondering, what if I also start a newsletter? And this was just, as you're listening to me, this is just, I guess, 2 months before. So this is a day before I decide to delete. And then I thought, okay, let me give it a last try. Since most of my clients earlier, as a recruiter, people would connect with me, but for now, I have no response. So I was in two minds whether I should delete or not. And eventually I thought I should. But then I thought, let me first try this newsletter part. And then if that even doesn't work out, and maybe in another month or so, I will delete the account forever. So I went in and created my first newsletter. To my surprise, to my surprise, a person who never believed that I have people who want to listen to me. I was going through an imposter syndrome because I never believed in my own competence. I had a lot of self-doubt. A lot of my marketing campaigns have already failed. So LinkedIn was like the last thing I was just exploring and experimenting with. And I told myself if this doesn't work out, and actually I'd made up my mind, but still I thought I'll give it a try and wrote that first newsletter. In one night, believe me, the next day, I even did not log in to check. But somehow, for some reason, I kind of happened to log in into LinkedIn to check some message, I guess. And then I realized, oh, I created a newsletter. Let me see what's the response. I found overnight, not even a span of 24 hours has passed by. I had 413 people subscribed to my newsletter and counting. This was one of the most pleasant surprises I ever had in my life, where a day before I was filled with self-doubt, thinking that I am no good and would delete this as well, and that all my social media marketing work is useless. This sense of self that I had been carrying from various beliefs in my growing years, and some of it I would also include in my very first years of corporate, just fall just fell flat. I was like, what? I have 413 people and counting. We're just waiting to hear from. And that's where I realized, friends, that how imposter syndrome can really block our progress. So on that day, I realized I should first thing was to reach out to my coach to not just share this experience, but kind of work also on some of the gaps that I started to identify in myself where I was getting more into the reactive mode. So this was my story of imposter syndrome. And I'm sure it would resonate with most of you where you're just very close to your success of your project, of all the good work you've done. And just because of this creepy, tiny fraction of self-doubt that creeps in, you just want to drop the ball or throw in the towel and just say and throw your hands up and give up. If you find yourself ever in such a situation, please pause. And that's exactly what I want to do by sharing this from my life. This is just one story. There are plenty more. Remember, imposter syndrome arises out of our deep-seated sense of self, which is built by various stories we keep telling ourselves and hearing from the external world about ourselves. But is it true? No, it is not. And when you go through such scenarios or experiences, I would say you should pay attention to this fact, which is where I have come up with this how can we really apply our learning and overcome this through this guided meditation story. And to practice this, I have put this meditation in a separate um, video. So you have to pause here, go there, check it, or see the whole of this video and then check that as well, because that will help you cultivate and build that boundaries, which will pull you out of every time you slip into this, um, into these trap of self-doubt, or or thinking yourself to be a fraud or that you're not good enough. So go and watch this. And before we close, I would also want you to make note of some very critical facts about imposter syndrome, which is, which, as I said, stems from perfectionist tendencies. So making note of this will always help you keep imposter syndrome at bay. Step one, accept that mistakes and failures are part of our life. These mistakes and failures will only make you more resilient and help you move forward. The various self-doubts, the what ifs, the misgivings are just thoughts and feelings. They are not facts. Give yourself the permission to fail. And when things don't really work out, yes, we will encounter failures. Reflect. Criticism doesn't always equal to failure. And remember, there's never a right way. Finally, remember this. I don't think I have to even repeat this. I would like to close the session with final thoughts by Alfred Fiedler. I really like this, and I keep coming back to this. Have the courage to be imperfect. If you have questions, like I asked my group of more than 70 plus emerging women leaders, that was another 1 hour session. But if you have questions, I'll leave my email address in the video, sorry, in the description box of this video. Feel free to ask. And thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.